Hey, good afternoon. You can see my canna lilies back there that I planted on the edge of the woods. They're starting to bloom. They're finally coming around. Those things can take over. I didn't know. I have an issue with them in the front of my house. Anyway, they're beautiful, but they can be an infestation. But I wanted to tell a story. And I originally kind of thought to start this channel for so my children would know more about me or my thoughts. So let me tell you a story. One story. I have many about a certain time period in my life, a long time ago. Let's go in the late 80s. I was about 18, 19 years old. Now keep in mind I started college at 17, so I was looking for a place to live up the valley in Colorado, in Aspen, because I had separated from my fiance who cheated on me, and I wanted to move out on my own. And in Aspen, it cost a fortune to live, and the reason I wanted to live closer up there is because I worked up there for the Aspen skiing company at Buttermilk Mountain, and it would be closer to work. I wouldn't have to drive that 45 minutes every day in good weather, and back then it was a 2-lane highway through the valley. And now it's 4. But I wanted to live closer, so I met with this person who had an advertisement, yes, back in the newspaper back then. Keep in mind, no cell phones. Met with him, and he had a townhouse that he rented out to nothing but girls. And then he had, I think, 2 other townhouses. One was nothing but boys or men, whatever. But the cost of it, and I'm trying to remember, I think it was like $700 a month, and you're sharing a room with somebody. So you have like 6 people in a 3-bedroom townhouse. it, okay, that was back then. Can you imagine now? So we sat and talked, and this man was so interesting. He was like, it could have been my grandfather. From Italy originally, and I mean, he was a United States citizen, but he was originally from Italy, and I think he said northern Italy. He had blue eyes, and he was a small man, and he had albums with pictures with actors from back in my grandmother's day, like Grace Kelly. He had a picture with her. He was a bodybuilder. He had lived out in California. I mean, apparently he was somebody at one time at least, or ran with the somebodies at one time. He was very vain, and you could tell. But anyway, so I ended up leaving. I didn't get the, rent from him or whatever, but I would stop by because I worked up there and check on him, because I had this idea that he didn't have anybody. He was alone, and I kind of felt sorry for him. But we'd also have great conversations, and of course, I'm young and naive. He probably had other ideas, but it never happened. Anyway, so one time I got a boot on my car because I parked in the wrong place in Aspen, and it cost $75 cash back then to get it off your car. There were no ATMs back then, so I had a check, but that was useless. So I called him. He brought me $75 cash, gave it to the guy, and he didn't want it back. And I was like, oh no, 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 no. I don't owe anybody. And anyway, I ended up having to hide it in his pantry next to the lentil progresso soup because he ate that almost every day for lunch. It was hilarious. And to make sure he would get it. So he ended up getting it eventually. I remember he was in the hospital, knee surgery. I sent him flowers and a card. This is about a year of... Anyway, one day he said that he wanted to take me to dinner, which, made me a little nervous. I'm not stupid. He's a man, I'm a female, even though I'm nearly a child compared to him. But I'm not stupid. And anyway, we went to dinner because he said he had something very important to ask me. And this is like a 5-star restaurant with a waiter standing there in Aspen, Colorado. And to make a long story short, he told me he wanted me to have his child and I would be taken care of and I could get my own lawyer, and he would ask that I would live like within 100 miles of wherever he was so that he could have something to do with the child, and that we could do it through artificial insemination and blah de blah. I mean, okay. And I was just a little stunned, but I was also honored. He wanted an heir. I guess he didn't have an heir. He had a child that he helped take care of from a woman, but it wasn't biologically his child, from my understanding. But I don't know how old he was. He wouldn't tell me. I would guess late 60s at that point. So he's probably gone now. I've tried to look him up. I can't find anything. But I knew what my answer was at the moment that he asked me, but I also knew that this was very important to him. And so I had told him that I would think about it. And within the week, 3 days to 7 days, somewhere in there, we met for lunch, and I told him I couldn't do it because I just couldn't. And he asked me why, and I said, I just could never picture myself telling our child that I was paid to have you and taken care of. It just didn't sit well with me. It is something I couldn't do. And he smiled and said, I knew you'd say that, and that's why I asked you. I guess I was one of the rare people that wasn't after him or to use him for his money. And it was sad. And I guess I learned by watching people around me that money can buy you a whole bunch of misery too. And I've always tried to just judge people for who exactly they are. I've made many mistakes thinking they're a lot like me, and they're not. It's never been a question for me what is right and what is wrong. And when I've done wrong, I've known I've done wrong. But there are some lines you just don't cross to have some self-respect and dignity. And if it means you don't have a lot of toys at the end of life, so be it. I have my soul. Have a good one.